The moment 35-year-old Michael Harrison walked onto the Voice stage, something profound filled the air. Not because of his appearance, though his slightly disheveled hair and the exhaustion visible in his eyes spoke of someone who had forgotten how to take care of himself, but because of the weight of grief that seemed to follow him like a shadow, invisible to most, but palpable to anyone who had ever loved someone deeply enough to feel their absence, like a physical ache. What nobody in that studio knew was that Michael had been a widower for exactly 8 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days. He knew because he had been counting every moment since the love of his life had taken her final breath, since the music they had made together had been silenced by cancer, since his world had collapsed into a before and after that would define the rest of his existence. Hidden in the production booth, the Voice team had prepared something that would either provide healing or inflict unbearable pain. They had received hours of home videos from Michael's family, footage of him and his late wife Lisa performing together, laughing together, building the kind of love story that people spend their entire lives hoping to find. They had no way of knowing how Michael would react to seeing her face again, larger than life, in the place where their dreams were supposed to come true together. Let me take you back to understand how Michael reached this moment, because his journey to the Voice stage was paved with a love so deep that losing it had nearly destroyed him, and a promise so sacred that honoring it was the only thing keeping him alive. Michael Harrison had met Lisa when they were both 22, two struggling musicians playing the same open mic night at a coffee shop in Nashville. She had been on stage singing an original song when he walked in, and the moment he heard her voice, pure, haunting, filled with an emotional depth that seemed impossible from someone so young, he knew his life had just changed forever. "You're going to marry that girl," his best friend had whispered as they found seats in the back of the crowded cafe. "I don't even know her name," Michael had whispered back, but even as he said it, he knew his friend was right. There was something about Lisa's presence, her voice, the way she connected with the audience that made Michael understand he was witnessing something extraordinary. They had started dating 3 weeks later, after Michael worked up the courage to approach her, after another performance. Their first conversation had lasted until sunrise, two musicians discovering that they shared not just a love of music, but compatible dreams, similar values, and the kind of emotional connection that made them feel like they had been searching for each other their entire lives without knowing it. Lisa became Michael's creative partner, his best friend, his musical soulmate. They wrote songs together that neither could have created alone, their voices blending in harmonies that seemed effortless because they came from shared hearts, shared experiences, shared dreams of making music that mattered. For 10 years, they had performed as a duo throughout the Southeast, building a modest but devoted following of fans who came to their shows not just for the music, but for the palpable love between them that made every performance feel intimate, authentic, real. They had been planning to audition for The Voice together, dreaming of the platform it could provide for their music, their message, their demonstration that love really could create something beautiful in a world that often felt broken. Lisa had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer on a Tuesday morning in February, exactly 1 week after they had submitted their audition video to The Voice. The diagnosis had been devastating not just because of its severity, but because of its timing. Just as their dreams were beginning to feel achievable, cancer had arrived to steal everything they had built together. The treatment had been brutal. Chemotherapy that left Lisa weak and nauseous, surgery that required months of recovery, radiation that exhausted her in ways that made performing impossible. Michael had become her caregiver, her advocate, her source of strength when her own began to fail. He had put his music career on hold, had taken a job with flexible hours, had devoted himself entirely to helping Lisa fight a battle they both knew she was unlikely to win. But even during the darkest days of treatment, Lisa had insisted they continue making music together. Not for audiences, not for their career, but for themselves, for the connection it provided, for the reminder that cancer could take her body, but it couldn't touch the love they had created through song. "Promise me something," Lisa had said during one of her final coherent conversations, her voice weak but her eyes still holding the fire that had made Michael fall in love with her 13 years earlier. "Anything," Michael had replied, holding her hand and trying not to think about how thin it had become, how fragile she felt. "Promise me you'll still audition for The Voice. Not as a duo, obviously, but as yourself. Promise me you'll sing our song and show the world what we created together." Michael had wanted to refuse, to tell her that music didn't make sense without her, that The Voice was their dream and he couldn't pursue it alone. But Lisa had been insistent with the kind of determination that had made her fight cancer longer than doctors had predicted. "Michael, our love story doesn't end when I die. It changes, but it doesn't end. Music is how you'll keep me alive, how you'll honor what we had, how you'll show people that real love is stronger than anything, even death." Lisa had died on a quiet Thursday morning in October at home in their bed, with Michael holding her hand and playing their song softly on his guitar. Her last words had been, "Keep singing, my love. Keep our music alive." For months after her death, Michael had been unable to touch his guitar, unable to listen to music, unable to imagine a world where melody existed without Lisa's voice to harmonize with his. The apartment they had shared became a mausoleum of memories, her coffee cup still in the sink, her sheet music still scattered across the piano, her presence everywhere and nowhere. The call from The Voice had come exactly 6 months after Lisa's death. Apparently, their original audition video had made such an impression that the producers wanted to offer Michael a chance to audition as a solo artist. His first instinct had been to decline, to explain that half of the duo was gone and music couldn't exist in a world without her voice. But that night, Michael had dreamed of Lisa. She was sitting at their piano, playing the melody to their song, smiling at him with the same love that had sustained him through 10 years of marriage. "You promised," she said in the dream. "You promised you'd keep our music alive." Michael had woken up with tears on his cheeks and Lisa's voice echoing in his mind. He called The Voice back and accepted the audition. Standing on the stage now, Michael felt the crushing weight of representing not just his own grief, but Lisa's unfulfilled dreams, their shared hopes, the music they would never make together. The bright lights seemed harsh without Lisa beside him to share nervous jokes. The audience felt enormous without her presence to make him feel less alone. But he was here, and somehow that felt like she was here too. Blake Shelton, Kelly Clarkson, John Legend, and Niall Horan sat in their red chairs, their backs turned, waiting to judge him solely on the merit of his voice. None of them knew his story yet, knew about the empty space beside him where his wife should have been standing, knew that every note he was about to sing carried the weight of a love story interrupted by death, but not destroyed by it. "Whenever you're ready," Blake called out encouragingly, his voice carrying that familiar Oklahoma warmth that somehow reminded Michael of the kindness that had surrounded him and Lisa during her final months. Michael stepped up to the microphone, his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted it. He had chosen their song, the one they had written together during their second year of marriage, the one that had become their signature piece, the one that told the story of finding your soulmate and knowing that love like that was worth any sacrifice. "Before I sing," Michael said, his voice already thick with emotion, "I need to tell you about someone who should be here with me tonight." The coaches remained in their chairs, but something in Michael's tone suggested this wasn't a typical introduction. "My wife Lisa and I were supposed to audition for this show together. We had been performing as a duo for 10 years, and this was going to be our shot at sharing our music with the world." Michael's voice began to break. But Lisa was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and she died 8 months ago. The studio fell into respectful silence as everyone processed the weight of what they were hearing. Michael's voice grew stronger as he continued. "Lisa made me promise that I would still come here, that I would sing our song and show people what we created together. So this isn't just my audition, it's our audition. This is for Lisa, for our love, for the music we made when we thought we had forever." He began to sing, at last, but not the Etta James version that everyone knew. This was their version, the arrangement he and Lisa had created together, slower, more intimate, filled with the kind of raw emotion that could only come from someone who had found their soulmate and then lost them. At last, my love has come along, my lonely days are over, and life is like a song. As Michael sang, something extraordinary happened. The voice production team, in a moment of inspired compassion, began displaying a large screen behind the coaches, showing videos of Michael and Lisa together, performing at their wedding, laughing in their kitchen, sharing quiet moments that captured the depth of their connection. Lisa's face filled the screen, alive and radiant, her voice joining Michael's in harmony through old home recordings. Michael saw the screen and his voice caught in his throat. The sight of Lisa's face, larger than life behind the coaches, was more than his carefully constructed composure could handle. Seeing her there, seeing their life together displayed for the world, made the reality of her absence hit him like a physical blow. He stopped singing mid-verse, his knees buckling as grief overwhelmed him completely. "We were supposed to grow old together," he sobbed, his voice echoing through the silent studio. "We had so many plans, so many songs we were going to write, so many dreams we were going to chase. She was supposed to be here with me. She was supposed to be here." The studio fell into the kind of silence that happens when everyone realizes they're witnessing something sacred, something too profound for applause or commentary. This wasn't just a nervous contestant having stage fright. This was a man mourning the love of his life in the most public way possible, honoring a promise that was costing him everything to keep. Blake Shelton felt something he'd never experienced in all his years of coaching. Without thinking, without consulting anyone, without following any protocol, he was out of his chair and moving toward the stage. His cowboy boots clicked against the polished floor as he approached this broken man who was trying to honor his wife's memory through music. "Michael," Blake said softly as he reached him. "I'm here, brother. Talk to me." Michael looked up through his tears, seeing this country star who had somehow appeared beside him like an angel of mercy. "She was everything to me. We made music together. We dreamed together. We were supposed to have forever together. And now I'm here alone, and I don't know how to sing without her harmony." Blake's own eyes filled with tears as he truly understood what he was witnessing. "Michael, what was your wife's name?" "Lisa. Lisa Harrison. We were going to be the Harrison duo. We had this whole plan." Michael's voice broke again. Blake looked up at the screen still showing Lisa's smiling face, then back at Michael. "Michael, I want you to look at that screen. Look at your wife's face. Does she look like someone who would want you to give up on the music you created together?" Michael wiped his eyes and looked at the screen where Lisa's image smiled down at them. "No. She'd be mad if I didn't finish our song. She'd say I was dishonoring everything we built together." Blake smiled through his own tears. "Then let's not disappoint her. But Michael, I want you to understand something. You're not singing alone up here. Every harmony you ever shared with Lisa, every song you wrote together, every dream you had, that's all still here with you. She's not gone, brother. She's just singing from a different place. But this is the moment no one in the studio and no one watching at home ever saw coming." Blake stood up and addressed the entire studio, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent decades understanding what real love looked like when it was expressed through music. "Ladies and gentlemen, this man just showed us something that most people never have the courage to show. He showed us what it looks like to love someone so deeply that losing them nearly destroys you, but honoring them so completely that you keep going anyway." He turned back to Michael, his voice gentle but strong. "Now, Michael, I want you to get up. I want you to look at that picture of your wife, and I want you to finish your song, not just for yourself but for Lisa. Show her that your love story isn't over, it's just being told in a different way." Michael stood up slowly, wiping his face, looking at Lisa's image on the screen. "I don't know if I can sing it without her." "You're not without her," Blake said firmly. "Look around you." He gestured to the other coaches, who had all turned their chairs and were watching with expressions of support and deep emotion. Kelly Clarkson was crying openly. John Legend had his hand over his heart. Niall was leaning forward, with the kind of attention that showed he understood something profound was happening. And more than that, Blake continued, "Lisa's here. I can feel her. Every person in this studio can feel her. She's in every note you're about to sing, every word you're about to share. So sing with her, Michael. Let her provide the harmony she always provided." Michael walked back to the microphone, looked up at the screen where Lisa's face beamed down at him, and began to sing again. But this time, something magical happened. As Michael sang, it was as if Lisa's voice joined his, not audibly, but spiritually, emotionally, in the way that only soulmates can share. The song became a duet between the living and the dead, between love and loss, between marriage and memory. At last, the skies above are blue. My heart was wrapped up in clover. The night I looked at you. As Michael sang, he began to move slightly, swaying as if he were dancing with an invisible partner. The audience watched in reverent silence, as this widower found a way to honor his wife's memory while celebrating the love they had shared. The song became not just a performance, but a conversation with Lisa, a way of letting her know that their music would continue even though her voice had been silenced. When Michael hit the final note, his voice soaring with both grief and gratitude, the studio erupted. All four coaches hit their buttons simultaneously. But this wasn't about competition anymore. This was about honoring love, celebrating the bonds that transcend death, and recognizing that some performances are bigger than any television show. Blake was already walking back toward Michael before the other chairs had finished turning. When he reached him, he pulled him into a hug that lasted longer than any embrace in voice history. "Michael," Blake said, his voice thick with emotion, "that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed. You didn't just sing that song, you sang it with your wife. You showed everyone in this room what love looks like when it refuses to let death have the final word." Kelly Clarkson, herself, moved beyond words, spoke through her tears. "Michael, I could feel Lisa's presence in every note you sang. You honored her, you honored your marriage, and you showed us all what it means to carry love forward, even when your heart is breaking." John Legend added, "That wasn't just a performance, Michael. That was a testament to the power of music to keep love alive, to connect us across any distance, even the distance between life and death." Niall, clearly emotional, said simply, "Your wife was here, Michael. We all felt her. And she's so proud of the way you honored what you had together." Michael chose Team Blake, not just because Blake had been the first to help him, but because he recognized in the country star someone who understood that the best music comes from the deepest love, someone who knew that marriage doesn't end with death, it just changes form. Over the following weeks, Blake became more than Michael's coach. He became his friend, his support system, and his reminder that carrying Lisa's memory wasn't a burden, it was a privilege. Blake helped Michael understand that he wasn't betraying Lisa by moving forward with his music. He was honoring her by keeping their love story alive through song. "Working with Michael changed my perspective on everything," Blake said in an interview during the live shows. "He reminded me that the most powerful music comes from the deepest love, and that real love doesn't end when someone dies. It transforms into something even more beautiful." Michael's journey through the competition became a masterclass in love, loss, and the power of music to heal and honor. His version of "I Will Always Love You" brought the studio to its feet. His duet with Blake on "When You Say Nothing at All" showcased his ability to channel grief into art that touched everyone who heard it. Each performance was a love letter to Lisa, a way of keeping their marriage alive through melody. During the finale, Michael performed the original song he and Lisa had written together, the one that had defined their relationship and their dreams. As he sang about finding your soulmate and knowing that love like that was worth any sacrifice, the screen behind him showed their wedding video, their life together, their final performance before her diagnosis. Lisa's recorded voice joined his in harmony, creating a duet that bridged the gap between this world and whatever comes after. Michael finished second in the competition, but his real victory was already achieved. He had kept his promise to Lisa, had shown millions of viewers that love doesn't end with death, and had proved that some bonds are so strong that not even death can silence the music they create. In his final performance speech, Michael's words were clear and strong. "This has been for Lisa from the very beginning. She's the reason I'm here. The reason I kept singing when everything in me wanted to be quiet. I want everyone who has lost someone they love to know that love doesn't die. It just learns to sing different songs." Blake stood behind him throughout his speech, his hand on Michael's shoulder, tears streaming down his face, as this 35-year-old widower taught the world a lesson about love, loss, and the power of music to transform grief into something beautiful. Today, Michael performs throughout the country, often with Lisa's picture displayed beside him on stage. He started a foundation for families dealing with terminal illness, using music therapy to help couples create lasting memories and find ways to honor love that transcends death. The wedding ring Michael still wears travels with him to every performance, a reminder that some marriages are eternal, some love stories never end, and some music is so powerful that it can carry someone's voice across the boundary between life and death. Blake Shelton learned something that night that changed his understanding of music forever. "Michael taught me that the most powerful performances aren't just about individual talent. Sometimes they're about the love we carry, the promises we keep, and the voices that sing along from somewhere we can't see but can always feel in our hearts. Because sometimes the most beautiful duets are performed by singers separated by worlds. Sometimes the strongest voices are the ones that carry love beyond death. And sometimes a widower singing alone can teach us all what it means to honor a love so deep that losing it doesn't end it. It transforms it into music that will echo forever." Michael Harrison proved that the voice isn't just about individual dreams. It's about the love that shapes us, the promises that sustain us, and the music that keeps our most precious relationships alive, even when death tries to silence them. His wife Lisa may not have gotten to stand on that stage, but her presence filled every note, proving that some harmonies are eternal, and some love stories are too powerful for death to end. AI visual prompt. Ultra-realistic 8K cinematic shot inside the Voice USA studio. The massive red V logo glows in bright red and white lights with vertical LED strips. A large screen dominates the background, showing wedding videos of Michael and Lisa Harrison dancing together, her radiant smile filling the frame. Michael Harrison, 35-year-old man, slightly disheveled brown hair, wearing a simple button-down shirt, wedding ring visible, stands center stage, completely broken down and crying with tears streaming down his face. He's on his knees at the microphone, overwhelmed with grief as he sees his late wife's image on the screen. Blake Shelton, tall country star, dark jeans, black shirt, has left his red chair and is kneeling beside Michael on the stage, his arms around the grieving widower in a protective embrace. His face shows profound compassion and understanding as he comforts this man, honoring his dead wife. In the background, Kelly Clarkson, John Legend, and Niall Horan are seated in their red chairs, all visibly emotional with tears streaming down their faces, hands over hearts, clearly moved by this heartbreaking tribute to lost love. Professional studio lighting, with warm, dramatic spots on Michael and Blake, while Lisa's wedding video glows beautifully on the large screen. The image captures the moment when love transcends death, when grief becomes tribute, and when marriage continues beyond the grave.